search for the cause of health, not disease, the Innate Doctor will be interviewing elite athletes, health professionals, scientific researchers, authors, and high-performance coaches to help understand where health actually comes from. If you want a simpler understanding of health, happiness, and longevity, you've tuned into the right place. You're listening to the Innate Doctor podcast, and here's your host for this life-changing episode, Dr. Trent Headlam. Have fun getting healthy.
And welcome everybody to the Innate Doctor podcast. This is your host, Dr. Trent Headlam, and I am absolutely jacked for today's guest. I've kept this one under wraps, haven't announced it earlier because I've been so excited about it, but I just wanted it to be a surprise for you guys out there in podcast land. We have the absolutely amazing Dr. Bruce Lipton on the line right now from Santa Cruz, United States, and this is going to be an absolutely epic episode. Bruce is an internationally renowned author, medical professional, stem cell biologist. He's written 3 books. The most popular, I understand, is The Biology of Belief. He has won the 2009 Goy Peace Award, has lectured, been a guest speaker on hundreds of TV and radio shows, and as well as a keynote presenter for national and international conferences. Bruce Lipton holds a PhD degree from the University of Virginia, started out in the medical realm, and really is bridging the gap, you could say, between the science and spirit. So I guess the physical world and the non-physical world, quantum mechanics, stem cell. I mean, to be honest, I think I'm out of my depths even mentioning some of these words, but I can't wait to hear what Bruce has to say about it all. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Trent, thank you so very much. I so appreciate being here with you. As you know, I started off in that allopathic world, but I am seriously embedded now in the chiropractic community because it's a far better way of helping our planet heal than the conventional allopath.
Yeah, and Bruce, I think that even some of our guests listening won't even be familiar with what that term allopathy means. What do you see that as the difference between, or how would you describe allopathy?
Allopathic medicine is a science based on a Newtonian physics view of the world, which views that there's 2 realms, an energy realm and a material realm. Interestingly, though, in a Newtonian world, they separate the energy from the material and say that they don't influence each other, so that the body, becoming part of the material realm, is not influenced by anything invisible. It's just a mechanical, physical device. And this leads to looking at the body as a machine. And then it looks to repairing the body either by physically, surgically altering the machine, adjusting the physical of the machine. But more importantly, the most way that it's used right now is to account for the pharmaceutical industry, which makes particles, matter to adjust the matter machine. And so that field of medicine perceives drugs as the cure-all, the silver bullet they call it, to cure their things. And in the process, they leave out mind and they leave out spirituality because according to a Newtonian world, that's not in the material realm, and it's more metaphysical, in fact. And so therefore, they leave that aspect out of the equation. Now, this is fundamentally the big flaw because science, all the different fields of science are built one on top of the other. In other words, they're very basic sciences, and from those come more focused sciences. So if I call it the pyramid of science in my book, because I show a pyramid shape, and I cut it up into floors. And the first floor, the mathematics, and it really talks about the new math of the world that we're experiencing called fractals, which are very exciting and very important in understanding health as well. The second floor is physics. The third floor is chemistry. The fourth floor is biology. And the fifth floor is psychology. What's very relevant is this. Every science on a higher floor is based on the science on the floors below it. significance. If a science on a lower tier changes its belief system, it's required that every science above must also incorporate that new belief system. So I say, well, what does this mean? I say, well, interestingly enough, allopathic medicine is based on Newtonian physics, a world separated into invisible energy and physical matter. And I say, yeah, but unfortunately in 1925, a new physics came in called quantum physics. Quantum physics is the physics that revealed that when you take the atom apart, at first they thought an atom was uncuttable. Actually, the Greek word atom means uncuttable. So in the earliest science, an atom was the smallest particle in the universe. And then they found, oh, there's some things inside like protons and neutrons and electrons. So they found smaller particles. But quantum physics came into the world when they started to look inside and say, so what are those protons and neutrons and electrons? What are they made out of? And that's when the world changed, because when they looked inside, there wasn't anything physical. That those things that we see as particles are actually based on energy. They're vortices of energy. They're like nano tornadoes, focused energy. So in a sense, an atom isn't made out of anything physical at all. It just has the illusion of being physical. And matter has the illusion of being physical because you can see it, versus the other energy, which is not visible. So you say, well, how can I see it if it's not there? And I go, well, the joke is, let's say a human body is made out of cells, made out of atoms, and the atoms are made out of energy, so everything above must be energy. And I say, but I can see a human body. I say, you can only see a human body when the lights are on. And it's not a joke intended that way. What it means is this. The only way you can see something in our world is when photons of light bounce off the surface of the energy. So a human body is a massive swirling of vortex of energy, but the photons, when the lights are on, hit the surface and the energy reflects the photons. So you're not seeing the body underneath, you're seeing a reflection of light coming back from that body. And that's why I say, well, you turn off the lights, well, you can't see anything. And the fact is why? Because even if, the fact is the energy is invisible. The only way you can see it is if you have a light to shine on it. So you could say, well, how you know everything's inside the body? I said, the only way you know anything's in the body is you have to cut it open and shine the light on it, and you can see what's inside the body. Relevance about this is, what did the new physics say? It said that the universe is made out of one thing, energy. And there are two versions of energy. The version that's like the invisible sea that we live in, which has television and radio broadcasts, Skype calls are coming across that, Wi-Fi, even solar energy. It's an invisible aquarium. We're looking at energy, cell phones, all kinds of energy shooting through. You can't see it. There's nothing there. That's what we've traditionally called the energy field. The matter is just another form of energy. And as I said, the only reason you can see it is because of the photons of light. And you can feel it because the little tornadoes that the atoms represent are so powerful, they push back on you. Just like a real tornado could pick up a house and throw it away. It's how forceful it is. Well, if you push on a tornado, it will push back on you, and all of a sudden you'll have a sense of, oh, I can feel it. So I say, when you're touching matter, you're not really touching matter, you're touching a force field. And it's repelling you based on the nature of that force field. So we have an illusion of matter. Quantum physics is an illusion because it's basically underneath everything that's made out of atoms is energy anyway. And why that's important is because when you see the unity that physical things are made out of energy and the non-physical energy of the field, they're both the same thing. And all of a sudden, the division that Newtonian physics said energy is separated from matter. In quantum physics, that division separates. Energy and matter are totally interconnected because everything is energy. The quantum physics does not eliminate Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics is still there. Newton's equations on the movement of the planets in the solar system are as accurate today as they were when he originally did them. The significance is quantum physics is a much, much bigger science, of which Newtonian physics is a subdivision. So basically, when the science changed on the pyramid, When it used to be Newtonian physics, medicine's truth about a physical world and an energy world were supported by that physics. But when quantum physics came in, then all of a sudden, the belief that energy and matter are separate is no longer valid. And in fact, the energy, that invisible energy called the field, this is how powerful it is. This is from Albert Einstein. This is fundamental physics. This is not even an argument. It can't be argued. It's fundamental physics. And the quote is, the field, which is the invisible energy, the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. Particle is matter. What Einstein was saying, the field, the energy is the sole governing agency of matter. I go, well, this is really relevant. Why? If you leave the energy out of the equation, then you have no understanding of what the hell's going on. And this is where allopathic medicine has found itself in a very severe place. Allopathic medicine does miracles with the physical nature of the body, meaning I need to put a new heart in, I need to fix your bone after an accident, I need to sew up your gut after you fell off something, and I can do all these physical things. That's what allopathic medicine does miracles at. Where does allopathic medicine fail? And that is this: cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, cardiovascular disease. I go, these are all the diseases. I go, they fail. I say, why? Because the diseases are not based on mechanics. The diseases are based on energy fields. And the significance is when you leave energy fields out of the equation and try to understand the diseases such as cancer, in a Newtonian allopathic model, you're looking for the physical cause. And I say, oh, well, then what we're going to do is we're going to find the cancer gene. It's the gene, the physical thing that causes life. And of course, they've been looking for cancer genes, but the truth is, guess what? There is no such thing as a cancer gene. There is no gene that causes cancer. That's a simple fact of life. And yet they're still looking for the cancer gene. The simple reality is why? Cancer is a response to the environment, and it's a response through the nervous system. And therefore, the issues of cancer are not stemming from the cells. The issue is from the environment in which the cells live, which is then focusing heavily on the communication of the system connected to the nervous system. And then you say, why is that relevant? And all of a sudden I say, are you kidding me? Chiropractic is the science of reconnecting our nervous system to make it work in harmony with our biology. So adjusting the nervous system is a much more powerful influence on affecting the health of the body than it is by throwing drugs in thinking you're going to affect a gene or a chemical in a cell, which is secondary at best, and actually creating one of the bigger problems in the sense that in the States today, I think the number is over 300,000 people die from taking prescription drugs. The drugs are causing, yeah, and they have always the war on drugs, illegal drugs. And I think the number of illegal drugs death is less than 25,000. I say, a war on illegal drugs that killed 25,000, but casually accept that 300,000 people dying from pharmaceutical drugs is that's just the cost of medicine. That's what they call it. That's the cost of medicine. I go, that's a very expensive cost of medicine if you think about it.
It's crazy. And you probably saw that as well just recently in the British Medical Journal. They once again confirmed research that was published a while ago. But yeah, medicine being the third leading cause of death from errors here in Australia. On that same day that research came out, instead of the news reporting on that, they reported on a chiropractor that adjusted a baby who got well, and that got well, and that was headline news. And now that chiropractor's had restrictions placed on himself, and anyway, the baby was well. Parents are happy, but for some reason, that's what the media focused on that very same day that the British Medical Journal published that research showing medicine's the third leading cause of death.
I even remember a statistic from a few years back that in Australia, 1 out of every 5 deaths is a result of medical healing or medical practice. It's called iatrogenic illness. It's a Latin Latin name that means an illness derived from the practice of medicine. And that's what they count as the third leading cause of death. But interestingly enough, those statistics are a bit biased because I think they only count people who were in hospitals and died from the medical treatments. They did not count all the people who died at home that carried the medical treatments at home. And when they put those numbers in, there's a guy by the name of Gary Null, N-U-L-L, Gary Null, and a bunch of medical people said, I don't want the estimates of this. I want the actual number of people who died from medical intervention. And when they calculated the numbers, especially those that died at home after medical intervention, the number was not the third leading cause of death in the United States, but it was number one, the leading cause. And it's a business. So therefore, corporate structure, profit is relevant to corporate, and it's not the medical doctors that are the problem. It's the medical establishment that is a problem because it's intertwined and connected with the pharmaceutical companies, and basically they're supporting each other in this deal, and in the process patients are dying left and right, and that is because allopathic medicine, as I said, will do miracles with trauma, but it has been blatantly unsuccessful virtually with everything else. So the issue is like cancer. It's like, hey, with all the billions of dollars spent on cancer research, they're doing exactly the same treatment for most people today that was done in 1930, exactly. And that is chemotherapy and radiation. That was what they were doing in 1930, and they're still doing it today. And the fact is, anybody with a logical brain in their head would say, wait a minute, here's a patient whose life is in balance right here, that the system has been overtaken by cancer, who's weakened in every aspect of their biology. And what are you going to do? Well, you're going to give them poison in chemistry, and you're going to poison them with radiation. And I go, this is the cure. And it goes out. Why I question that is, if a healthy person did the same chemotherapy and the same radiation, that healthy person would get seriously sick. I go, holy geez, they're doing it with people who are already seriously sick. And then, in a sense, they're taking away their life and their vitality. This is an inappropriate way to deal with cancer, because cancer is not a defect of the cells. Cancer is a defect of an environment. And therefore, it's changing a person's lifestyle and their nervous system response to the world is where the cure of cancer comes from, not from chemotherapy and drugs.
Yeah,
and people. Yeah, go ahead.
So Bruce, and you're not just. This isn't just sort of an opinion, is it? I mean, you started out.
These are facts.
Yeah, you started out in your earlier career at Stanford Medical University. Is that correct?
I was at the University of Wisconsin for 10 or 11 years. I got tenure.
Yep.
And then when my research revealed that what I was teaching medical students was completely different than what my research revealed, that there was a point where I said, I can't do this anymore because I know I'm teaching people that genes control life in the lecture hall. And my research reveals completely the opposite. My research revealed that the environment controlled genes. And I said, well, what was the difference? Well, if you believe the stuff I was teaching in the classroom, then what we were teaching people is that they're victims, that they have no control over their health. It's being controlled by these things called genes, which they not picked, nor can they control, and therefore they have no power over their health. That's the teaching. Genes did it, and therefore if you have no power, you have to seek a rescuer. So now you seek a professional to help you with that, versus the research in my lab revealed that the genes were being controlled by the environment. And so by changing the environment, I could change genetic activity. And I go, well, why is that relevant? Well, then I'm no longer a victim of my genes. If I know how to create the environment, then I can create health by doing, living in an environment that encourages my health. And all of a sudden now my health is up to me. I'm the master of my health. So I'm teaching victimization in a classroom, and the cells in my laboratory were teaching me mastery. about how our nervous system translates the environment, and that translation via the chemistry released by the nervous system controls genetics and behavior. And therefore, by changing our response to the environment, we have control. And that's the 180-degree different story than medicine that says we're victims. The new science says, no, we are powerful healers. So which one do you want to go to? And I go, hey, it's based on your belief. Because it turns out your belief is translated into chemistry, which controls your biology. A negative belief turns into negative chemistry, which can actually cause any illness and even cause death, while a positive belief can promote healing. And you go, really? And I go, well, everybody's heard of the placebo effect. I say, what's a placebo effect? A belief, a positive belief that this particular pill or this therapy is what is really the thing that's going to heal me. So I take the pill or I go through the therapy, I get well, and then find out the pill was a sugar pill or the therapy was just a sham, a fake thing. And I go, well, then how did a person get well? Not from the pill, not from the therapy, but from the positive thought that this was going to do it. So the healing was not from the intervention, it was from the thought, okay? And people go, yeah, that's the placebo effect. I go, nobody really talks about, what about negative thought? Because we only talked about the positive thought. Yeah. And so now the truth, and the truth is very important. A negative thought is equally powerful in changing our lives as a positive thought is, but in the opposite direction. A positive thought can heal the body. And listen to this true story. This is science. I'm not making it up. A negative thought can create any of the diseases that we experience, as well as a negative thought can actually kill you. And there's a name for it. There is a medical name. It's called the nocebo effect. And the significance is we never talk about the negative aspect. And I go, well, you should, for a reason is almost everybody in this world, most of their thoughts and actions are based on negative beliefs and negative emotions. And why is that relevant? Because they're not just passive. All that negative stuff is actually responsible for 90% or more of the illness on this planet. It turns out genes have been identified to be responsible for less than 1% of illness. And if genes are less than 1%, you have to ask, so where's the rest of it coming from? And the answer is our environment and our perception or response to the environment. And those are things we can control. So we shouldn't be in a health crisis at this time. But the old science ignores or disavows that, because the old science, allopathic, has not changed. Even though quantum physics has come into the field, allopathic is still Newtonian, and it says the only way out is through drugs. And drugs have no effect on this. It's basically consciousness and nervous system. Get the nervous system in order so it flows, and then put the right consciousness at the top of the system, and absolute health is yours, and it's not based on genetics.
That's amazing. And I mean, what you're saying there about negative thoughts, it doesn't take long to be, in a hospital setting or in a general practitioner setting to, realize that they don't make a particular effort to make people feel happy and loved, do they? I mean, you spend about a minute in a hospital and you're already pissed off.
It's very interesting. One of the things that I heard from people who are involved in that business is that, birthing was never a medical procedure. Birthing is a natural procedure. And what was really interesting is that why is birthing in the hospital? And the answer is simple. When there's no birthing in a hospital is a place of illness and death. But when you put birthing in a hospital, it's a happy place. So it was the psychology of usurping pregnancy as a way of changing the image of a hospital. It's not just a place of death. People are born there. So all of a sudden it's not because if it was just a place of death, you go to the hospital, it's like, oh, let's go to the hospital. Scare the hell out of you right away. But no, it's a place of happiness because babies are born, so it changes the attitude. It's a good place. But no, it's a scary place. And the idea about it is that once we start to understand that conventional medicine is the third leading cause of death. I'll give them the credit of being third, even though I know it's worse. Just logically, somebody must stop and say, wait, The healing profession is the third leading cause of death. You'd think there might be something wrong in the practice. I would question that. Obviously, if it's one of the leading causes of death, then how can it be the healing industry? And the answer is because it is not operating in today's consciousness and awareness. It's outdated. It's a manipulation by the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry would jump into energy medicine in a second if they could put it in a capsule or a tablet. If you could sell it, they would do it. But since it's not commercially available, I mean, how can you sell a thought? How can you sell a mind transmission and energy? You can't. So basically, the pharmaceutical industry has zero interest in energy healing. And you go, so what? I go, well, being that they're one of the richest corporations on the planet. I think they're number 2 right behind the petroleum industry, the pharmaceutical industry. The significance is they have used that money to manipulate the public to believe that energy healing and all that is new age woo-woo and nothing to it and all these different things. Why? To keep their audience buying pharmaceutical drugs. And yet the reality is this: we know pharmaceutical drugs, in fact, in that iatrogenic illness, are responsible for a major portion of deaths. And the fact is, it's not a very successful system. And we're going to go back to, look, people healed themselves for 1 million years before there were medical schools here. And a lot of it had to do with consciousness, hands-on healing, emotions, and mind. And now we're beginning to find out through the new science called epigenetics. The genes control nothing. Genes cannot control themselves. Genes are controlled by environment. And that the environment in which the cells live is shaped by the consciousness of that person, because the consciousness of that person is translated into chemistry in the blood that shapes the behavior and genetics of the cell. Change your consciousness, and you change the activity and genetics of your cell. So,
Bruce,
Yes.
Can I just get you to explain exactly what you mean by the word consciousness? Because it's something that we hear a lot, but I'd love your explanation of exactly what the definition of consciousness is, or in the way that you're referring to it.
That's a good idea to do that, Trent. Thank you for that, because then 10 people with 10 different visions of consciousness have 10 different ideas about what I just said. So let's put it in a context where, let's put it this way. I'm going to talk about the mind as the source of consciousness. Then I have to say there's an issue, because when we say the mind, it has a singularity to it. And I go, no, the mind is comprised of 2, and this is important, interdependent subdivisions, meaning there are 2 parts to the mind that have different functions, and they learn in different ways, but they cooperate together, but they're each separate entities. So the issue is, when you talk about the mind as a single entity, there's a confusion between recognizing the 2 separate entities, which are the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. That's the basic subdivision. And I say, we call it the mind, but the subconscious and conscious minds operate with different ways of operating, and they learn in different ways, and that's where the conflicts come from. The subconscious mind, by definition, is the habit mind. It's the one that has downloaded programs, and once you download a program, you don't have to relearn it again. It's a very wonderful mind. Think about it this way. You learned how to walk when you were an infant. Well, once you learn how to walk, it's a program in the subconscious mind. You never again relearn how to walk. So, hey, that's a beautiful idea. Why? Because walking is very complicated, as you well know. I mean, just being that infant trying to stand up is a bitch at that point. But now you got it down. I say, well, why is it relevant? Because the subconscious mind will remember it. From when I was 1 year old to 120 years old, my memory of walking should still be in there. So God bless the subconscious mind. Now, of course, that's when you have good programs in it. But since they're programs, they could also be some negative and disempowering programs in there. And that would then, that's where people get like the idea of the subconscious mind is evil. I say the subconscious mind isn't evil. It's a neutral device. It's just a record playback. That's what it does. Record how a behavior is done, push a button, and play it back every time. You learned how to drive a car. Well, the conscious mind was paying attention to how to drive a car, but once you practice, it became a habit. And now you can drive the car without thinking of all the details. You get in the car, you put your key in, and you're already in conversation with the passenger, not even thinking about every one of the details that you labored over in learning how to drive the car. Now it's like automatic. And I go, great, subconscious. Okay, so subconscious got these habits and programs. Conscious mind is the latest evolution of the brain, about 10% of it. It's right behind your forehead, primarily in what is called the prefrontal cortex, a lobe of brain just behind your forehead. And the conscious mind is different. Subconscious, as I said, is record, playback, habit. The conscious mind is creative. And this is why the evolution of humans has so departed from the evolution of lower animals, because lower animals live more stimulus response, input output, reflex behavior. But as you get the ability to have a conscious mind, you become more creative. So between the stimulus and the response, creativity gives me a chance to put an orchestra in the middle if I wanted to. So I got great versatility with creative mind. So I go, okay, well, the mind is controlling biology. And I go, well, which mind are we talking about? And I go, your personal identity, what makes you unique from every other human is something in the prefrontal cortex. It's like a room like on the Starship Enterprise where you're sitting at the deck out there and looking out the big windows. You're in there, a source, an entity, an identity different than anybody else. The conscious mind is creative. And this is the cool part, because if I say, hey, Trent, what are you doing next Wednesday? If you actually have an answer, then realize that had to be creativity, because Wednesday's not here yet. So obviously you were thinking into the future. So creativity has this ability. And now here comes the important part. As a personal entity, as a spirit, as a source, your creative mind holds your wishes and your desires. Your wish is something you want to happen. Your desire is something you want to happen. Your aspiration, what do I want out of my life? It's something you want to happen. So wishes, desires, and aspirations, by definition, are from the conscious mind, creative activities. Okay, and I say, what about subconscious? I say, habit. It just push the button and play the behavior. Okay. Now, when I say, how is our life controlled? And here comes the problem. The conscious mind not only can drive the vehicle. So imagine that in your brain is a steering wheel that's driving your life. I say when you're in your conscious mind, you got your hands on the wheel. You, the unique identity, the person, the spirit you are, has the wheel in your hand. You're driving the vehicle to where you want to go. But then here's the critical part. In addition to driving the vehicle, the conscious mind can think. But the problem is, driving a vehicle means you have to pay attention to what's going on in the world. Thinking is not occurring in the outer world, it's occurring inside your head. So, hey, Trent, what are you doing on Sunday? If you're really going to answer the question, the first thing is your consciousness had to go into your head, like into an invisible Rolodex or something, and go, Sunday, what am I doing on Sunday? And I say, well, guess what? The moment you've been trying to answer, what are you doing on Sunday? Where are you? Where's your consciousness? It's not looking out at the street, it's inside the head. So here's the problem. Consciousness, your spirit identity is driving the vehicle, okay? Except when you're thinking. That means you let go of the wheel and you're now in your head solving a thought. And I go, does that mean whatever you were doing stops? So like if you were walking down the street and then you have a thought, that your biology stops, you stand still, your conscious mind's inside processing some data, comes to an answer. This is, okay, now I start walking again. I say, no, you have a thought, you're still walking. I go, did you run into the tree or the pole or anything? No, I walked down the street while I was thinking. I go, how'd you do that? And here's the answer, and this is important. When the conscious mind lets go of the wheel to go inside and be in thought, the driving of the vehicle is now controlled by the subconscious. It's an autopilot. It kicks in. It knows how to walk. As a matter of fact, all of walking is in the subconscious anyway. So you can continue walking while your conscious mind's busy. You can continue driving your car, your conscious mind's busy. And then sometimes when you come out of your thought and you realize, wow, I went a long way. You didn't even pay attention to the road because you were not driving with conscious mind. And I go, okay, here's the point. You can drive the biology, internal genetics and behavior, as well as external life experiences with your conscious wishes and desires when your conscious mind has got the hands on the wheel. But every time the conscious mind goes into thought, it lets go of the wheel and the autopilot kicks in, and then you're running from programs. And I say, And how much of the day is that? And this is the killer. It is recognized by science that the average person is thinking 95% of the day, their mind is in some kind of thought. I say, why is it relevant? The answer is, then by definition, you are not putting your hands on the wheel and driving your vehicle 95% of the day. It's being driven by the subconscious programs. You got that? Why? Conscious mind's busy, so I'm on default. Now the monkey wrench, and that is this. Where do the fundamental programs of behavior come from the subconscious mind? The answer is the first 7 years of life. The subconscious mind is downloading behavior by observing other people. The brain of a child of 7 is predominantly in EEG terms, electroencephalograph terms, in theta, which is characterized as imagination. Yes, a child under 7 can mix the real world and the imaginary world. A tea party with mud pies. The mud pie is really a pie. It's not mud, it's a pie. A broom is a horse to a kid, not a broom. And I say, oh, because the mind in imagination can take that broom and translate it as a horse to the kid. So the horse feels they're on the kid feels they're on a horse, not on a broom. So I go, oh, okay. So the significance is the first 7 years, the brain is in a lower vibration, theta, which is imagination, but it's also hypnosis. I say, what? I say, from the last trimester of pregnancy, the first 7 years of life, the predominant functioning activity of the brain is theta, which is another term for is called hypnosis. Wow. And so what does it mean? The first 7 years of a child's life, it is downloading behavior. From where? Observing the mother's behavior, the father's behavior, the siblings, and the community. And that's how, if I just asked you a logic question, how many rules must a person know to live in a community and in a family, to keep the wholeness and all of the activities together? How many rules to play the game? Thousands. I said, well, how are you going to teach an infant thousands of rules? And I said, you don't have to teach them. The brain in theta is just downloading them. So the first 7 years is downloading a database to run your life. By age 7, you kick into another higher level of EEG brain activity called alpha, which is consciousness. Now you can select from the programs and use the downloaded programs. So I say, yeah, but what's the issue? Back to the monkey wrench, the download. The first 7 years, you're downloading programs from who? Other people. I say, do their behaviors support your wishes and desires? Probably not. I say, why is it relevant? Because you just downloaded their behavior. I go, well, I'm not going to use it. I go, well, unfortunately, 95% of the day, you're going to be in thought, so your behavior is going to run from the database of programs you downloaded from your family and your community. And I say, and relevance? Psychologists have recognized that up to 70% or more of the programs downloaded in the first 7 years are disempowering, self-sabotaging, and limiting behaviors. And I go, well, conclusion, Lipton? Yep. I wake up in the morning with wishes and desires for my life, health, happiness, money, whatever I want. I go out in the world, come home at the end of the day, beaten, tired, and not succeeding. And I look at myself and I say, wow, the world is not supporting my wishes and desires. Now, the true story. I went forth in the morning with a conscious moment of wishes and desires. But once I left the room, 95% of my behavior did not come from my conscious mind. It came from my subconscious programs because my conscious mind was thinking. Then I say, wow, well, psychologists have just told us 70% of those programs are disempowering. And I go, and you're running them 95% of the day. Why? Because your conscious mind's busy. And then you say, yeah, but if I was sabotaging my own behavior, I would see it. So I didn't see myself doing that. And then I go, story, Trent, this is a story I tell in all my lectures. So it's the same story, but it's the most powerful story because it explains it right there in one story. I'm sure that in growing up somewhere in your life, you had a friend and you were close to your friend and you knew your friend's behavior very well. And in this particular case, you knew your friend's parent. And one day you recognized that your friend has the same behavior as their parent. This is like, oh, wow, really exciting. You can't wait. You go, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. And then I go back away from Bill. Why? He's the first person to say, how the hell can you compare me to my dad? He'll go ballistic defending himself that he's not his dad. And everyone laughs. I go, why? Because everyone's familiar with it. And I say, and what's so profound about it? Number one, everyone else can see that Bill behaves like his dad. The only one who doesn't see it is Bill. Explanation, simple. In the first 7 years, he downloaded those behaviors by observing his father in a state of hypnosis, theta, and they became the fundamental programs of his subconscious. And today, he's only using his conscious mind 5%, so 95% of the time he's playing his dad's programs. Yeah, but if his conscious mind was busy in thought, by definition, his conscious mind did not observe the behavior because it was thinking, and therefore denies that he was anything like his dad. And then the conclusion of all of that is we are all Bill. Every one of us got programmed. Every one of us plays the programs 95% of the day. Every one of us does not see almost all of the programs. I will admit, sometimes you do see yourself and you go, oh my God, I was just acting like my mother. Oh my God. It's just like, I was just like my dad. Oh, and we feel totally embarrassed by it. But that's the only times you catch it, which are very, very infrequent.
I think every single person listening.
They're playing all the time. And the issue is, yeah, every one of us. And the relevance is why it's important. Because when we look at our life and see it as a life based on struggle to obtain the things that we so desire, wish, or aspire to, conscious mind, and we have so much trouble getting to it, and it's invisible that we are sabotaging ourselves, then we feel that we're victims of the world, and therefore we are powerless. But with the new biology, we understand, oh my God, 95% of the day I've been playing programs that have been sabotaging me. They've been invisible. I haven't seen it, and yet I can experience the results. And the idea is I have felt that I was a victim, and now we know, no, if we can control our subconscious mind and stop playing those programs, we can change our entire life. You can change the whole world when people start doing this. And the relevance is we have to wake up to the fact, like Bill, we're playing 95% of our life out of programs that don't support by any necessity the wishes and desires that our conscious mind holds and really wants to express. And it becomes then a difficult question that people say, well, when did these programs get downloaded? And I go, well, it started in the last trimester of pregnancy and continued up for the first 7 years. And I say, wow, is that a new thing of science? I go, well, science, it's new because it now understands the mechanisms. But interestingly enough, the observation about the truth of this known for 400 years. The Jesuits are very proud when they boast, give me a child until it's 7 and I will show you the man. What they were saying, people didn't understand. 400 years they've been saying it, people didn't understand. They were saying, give me the child's education for 7 years and I will control the outcome of that person's life. Why? Because 95% of their life is going to come from that program. They already knew that, okay? So the simple reality is...
and Rudolf Steiner was talking about up to age 7 as well, wasn't he?
Yep, it all comes down to about 7 when the EEG changes, the patterns change, and we operate from a different level. And so now the question is this, well, God, if those programs were downloaded even before I was born or when I was 1 or when I was 2, I have absolutely no idea what the hell those programs are because the conscious mind wasn't working. So the programs went bypassed conscious mind in those years and downloaded directly in the subconscious. And then now we're stuck with a world today. If I'm 40 or some years old and I look around, I go, well, how do I know what the hell those programs are? They're operating, I can't see them. I don't know what the programs are. I wasn't conscious when they were in there. And then I go, here's the happy resolution. 95% of your life is coming from the subconscious. Consequently, your life is a printout of your program. Simple. Look at your life. Everything that you like that comes to you easily and comes into your life comes in because you have a program to support that being there. In contrast, and this is the one to pay attention to, anything you work hard at, anything you struggle over, anything you have to put a lot of effort into, or anything you're sweating over to make it happen. Why are you working so hard to make something happen? The answer, inevitably, a subconscious program doesn't support that. And so your conscious mind's wishes are being challenged by your subconscious programs. And you won't get to your wish if your programs are running 95% of the time. And that's why we find life a struggle. And it's because up to now we said, life's a struggle because outside forces are not supporting me, because obviously I wanted to be healthy. I'm not. So it's not me, it's something else. And I'm a victim. And now with new science, it says, no, oh my God, I was shooting myself in the foot all day long with these subconscious behaviors. And then come home and look at my bloody foot and say, who did that? Not knowing that the smoking gun is still in my hand. Yeah. And this becomes the critical part, because when we start to know this, you can look at your life and say, I don't like this part of it. I love this part. Oh, well, if I don't like this part and it's a program, can I change it? And the answer is, yes. You can rewrite the subconscious. And if you do that, you take back control of your life. If you replace the negative programs with empowering programs and programs of things that you like, then 95% of the... Yes, go ahead.
So, Bruce, and what are some of the techniques, say, that you have personally used to, I guess, help shift some of those subconscious thoughts or thinking patterns that haven't been well-serving to you? Like, what are some things that you have done and that you do on a regular basis?
Okay. The first thing I did when I became aware of it was start to recognize that my subconscious mind was more powerful than my conscious mind. This is very important because it says, who's running the show? And I say, well, as a chiropractor, you're familiar with muscle testing, I presume, right, Trent?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, so what's the point of muscle testing? Muscle testing is getting a readout from what? I say, well, remember, the conscious mind is creative and the subconscious mind's got programs. So I can make any kind of statement with my conscious mind. Anyone, I can create a fantasy statement. I don't care what it is. It's creative. I can create it. So I can create a statement saying, I am lovable. The point is, when the conscious mind makes a statement, the subconscious mind goes into the database to see if that statement in the creative mind matches the programs and the experiences of life. And if it doesn't match, then the subconscious mind and the conscious mind are no longer in harmony with each other. The subconscious mind, being the powerful mind, is the one that controls the musculature of the body. So the point is simply this: you make a creative statement with the conscious mind, and to find out if the subconscious mind supports that statement, you do a muscle test. And I say, what does it show? It says, if the subconscious mind agrees with the statement because the data and the history supports the statement, then harmony between the two minds is expressed as total strength of muscle. It's rock solid, man. If the belief, if the statement and the subconscious mind agree with each other, then the muscles are rock solid. Contrast, if you make a statement, the subconscious mind can't find the data to support that statement, then the subconscious mind is now in disharmony. Disharmony is reflected as a loss of strength. And for that instant, when you make the statement, there's this instant right after you make the statement where the conscious mind, if it doesn't agree with it, is like now in disharmony, loses some of the strength. And that's why the arm will start to move if you're doing arm as a testing. You can do any muscle test from arm to a finger to a neck. You can even muscle test using an eye chart, because when there's disharmony between the conscious mind statement and the subconscious mind's program, weakening the muscles, it also weakens the muscles that focus the eye. So that looking at eye chart, you can even do muscle testing by looking at the eye chart and seeing that it just got weaker and you can't focus as well when the statement and the subconscious don't agree, disharmony, versus when you make a statement that both agree on, your vision is super strong.
That's great. And so, Bruce, we've got about 10-15 minutes before we wrap up, but I just want to we'll circle back a little bit on the conversation in a second, but just to finish up on that what we're talking about here in terms of, so when you do find, okay, I have disharmony between my subconscious mind and my conscious mind with these muscle testing, then how do you deal with that? You go, okay, well, there's disharmony here, these things aren't matching up, so what can I do about that?
Well, then now this is the part where now I say I have to change the program. So I say, so what's the issue? And I go, I told you the biggest problem was not only the minds have a different function, conscious, creative, subconscious, habitual, but they learn in different ways. The conscious mind being creative can learn in creative ways. Read a self-help book, go to a lecture, listen to this conversation between you and I. The conscious mind can learn, okay? But I say, what about the subconscious? I go, the original way the subconscious mind learned, first 7 years, was it was in a state of hypnosis or brain state theta. And I say, if you want to put programs in, then get back into theta. They say, well, how do you do that? I say, well, theta is a vibration just below consciousness, but above sleep. And I say, why is it relevant? Because when you come home and you're at high functioning activity beta, when you get out of work and then you calm down, the vibrations get slower, then they go into alpha. And just as you're nodding off to sleep, the point of just before you nod off and just after you nod off is just before you nod off is alpha. When you just nod off, it dropped into theta. So the point is, every night as you go to bed, just as your conscious mind lets go, you're in theta. And if you have a pair of earphones on, and you play a tape with a program on it with a belief or a program you would like to have, then as you go into theta, that whatever's on that CD or tape or whatever the hell you're playing with, that information bypasses consciousness, which just went to sleep, because now the brain is in theta. But that was the state it was in the first 7 years. I go, yeah, that's the state will download what was on that message that was playing through the earphones, okay? So I go, so you can do hypnosis. Yeah, every night as you go to bed, you can do hypnosis by putting the same earphones and same message on. After a repetition, you'll have that built into your subconscious. I go, that's one way. I say, well, what about after age 7, because the programming doesn't work after age 7. There's a different way of putting a habit in. I go, yeah, after age 7 was repetition.
Yeah, right.
Anything you had to learn was repetition. I mean, how many times did you have to go A, B, C till you could get to Z without stopping? You had to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. But finally, you got A to Z. And guess what? Now it's done. You never had to do it again. It was learned. So you repeated and repeated and repeated until it was learned. Anything you have to learn, a new thing, driving the car or playing a new sport or whatever it is, if you want to play into the game, you're going to have to learn it. So you're going to have to practice it. So, practice. You want to change the behavior? Create a new behavior that represents the thing that you want. You want to be in love, then you got to start looking at yourself as I am lovable. And you have to always look at yourself and say, oh, look, hey, I am a lovable person. You keep repeating yourself, and you repeat this a lot and a lot and a lot. And at some point, because of repetition, the I am lovable becomes part of the program. And now the door is open to love. And the issue and why that's the one I just brought up, interesting enough, is because the biggest problem on this planet is through our child development the first 7 years, most of it was critical of our behavior. Our parents were trying to shape us, and they were very critical. So they would say, that's not good enough. You can do better. Who do you think you are? You don't deserve these. Not that's the way your life is. That's just because they wanted your behavior to shape up. And I go, well, that was like a coach. That was really pretty good. Only one problem. If the child's under 7, it doesn't understand the meaning of what you said. It just recorded what you said. Yeah. An older person, when the coach says you don't deserve to be on the team, doesn't mean that I get off the team. It means you're not working hard enough. Work harder. But you have to think what that means. Okay. I say, but a child under 7 hears you do not deserve this. It's a straight recording. I said that's in hypnosis. I do not deserve. Period. I go, wow. It wasn't meant as a lifetime program, but if it's repeated to a child under 7 several times, the state of theta will make it a lifetime program, so it becomes part of your subconscious. I do not deserve. And I say, relevance? Well, if you're engaging in behavior where you hope to get something and you have a program playing, I do not deserve, well, then you will unconsciously sabotage everything because the program in the mind will become truth. The mind creates your life. If it's a negative program, then it will create a negative life. It's a positive program, creates a positive life.
Makes sense.
So basic, and I say, well, so repetition, say, I want to be happy, and you're not. And I say, well, then pretend you're happy. Fake it till you make it. Smile a lot. Think of things that might be funny. Just try and be funny. Consciously try it. Why? because then you start directing your attention toward things that are funny and things that lighten your life, rather than beforehand, nothing was funny. And what you looked at took away the vitality and fun out of life, because you weren't looking for fun. You were looking for why life sucks, and here's the reasons, and you found it. So your behavior matches your belief. Life sucks is a belief. You're now created a life because your behavior is going to be complementing your belief. That's what biology belief is all about. And so your brain takes your belief. Yeah. The brain takes a belief and turns it into chemistry that manifests that as. So change your belief, you change your reality. So those are two fundamental ways. And I said, yeah, and both of them take time and repetition. Then I'm going to say, and wow, we have something brand new, an opportunity for a new kind of psychology, is energy psychology. There's a lot of different modalities that come under that title of energy psychology. Collectively, they're opportunities to reprogram subconscious minds in minutes. One of them that I've used personally in my life, called Psych-K, which is PSYCH-K, like the abbreviation of psychology-K.com. It changed my whole life, and I went through these belief changes that I could change a belief in less than 10 minutes. And so this is really necessary, because the world's in a very serious situation right now, and it's caused by the way we behave on this planet. Knowingly, the answer to our survival is no longer behave this way. We need to change our behavior. So energy psychology is a boon for us. It's a fabulous thing, because it says we don't have to take long periods of time to rewrite subconscious programs. They can be rewritten in minutes. And they say, well, what do I want to rewrite? And I say, well, look at your life. You already know what you want to rewrite. Where's the struggle? And you put that into a behavioral context, and that's the program you want. The opposite of the struggle, you want the opposite, and that's what you want to program. That's three ways. Hypnosis, so you can use auto hypnosis with put earphones on and use recording. B, repetition. Manifest a behavior and repeat it, just like anything you ever had to learn. It's not a sticky note on the refrigerator. It's an exercise. You have to repeat it and repeat it, and then it becomes a habit. And then lastly, thank God, the new thing called energy psychology. On my website, there's 20 or more different versions of that, so you can check them out. And this is a way to take back power over your life. So you just look at your life. If it's not working, the things that are not working are almost always due to a program that is not supporting what you want. And therefore, you can power your life by rewriting that subconscious.
There's life-changing stuff right there, Bruce. That's blown everyone's mind, I think. I just want to finish up, Bruce, with how you ended up moving from the allopathic medical institution into chiropractic, and where chiropractic fits in all of this discussion that we're talking about. Because I mean, you've mentioned the nervous system and reconnecting there, and you did mention chiropractic a little bit. But what was your story? What got you into chiropractic, or what made you sort of recognize that there was something to this profession? And obviously, you'd be aware, and I'm aware that BJ Palmer and DD Palmer, who were sort of the founders and developers of chiropractic, were really talking about this stuff that this whole conversation's been about today. Way before Einstein even came up with any of the quantum mechanic theories and all of that stuff. And so these two really just intuitively understood, I guess, the world and the universe and the human body. And, it's pretty unbelievable what these guys were writing and talking about way before the science had even caught up. So, how did you get into chiropractic?
Well, I was at the time I was doing research at Stanford. That's when some really wonderful work with stem cells at Stanford. And but my work was so antagonistic to the conventional point of view, because, well, everybody was so engrossed in genes at that time, because that's when the Human Genome Project was going full out and everybody was into genes. My work, as I mentioned earlier, completely was antagonistic to that, because it said that environment was controlling it. And then when I left the University of Wisconsin, and before I ended up at Stanford, I really got into quantum physics. And the reason is that physics is foundational to every science. It's mechanisms of the universe. And that conventional allopathic science is being driven by an outdated physics. Newtonian physics is the stuff I learned in school, so that was how I looked at biology and cells and all that. And I started to realize, but this quantum physics, I've got to understand it, because it's really the newest understanding of how the universe works. And when I got into it, it was all based on energy and vibration and all these invisible forces affecting the physical world. I was like, holy jeez, this is completely different. And so while I was now talking about the new science of epigenetics in my research, because I was revealing that environment was controlling genes, I was also invoking the nature of energy and vibration as part of that environment. In fact, the most powerful part in shaping us is the energy and vibration. And I was finding no audience per se at Stanford, because they were all into the genes and chemistry. But it was interesting. I got a call from the dean of basic sciences at Life West in Bay Area here. And Pat Gaiman called me and said, come and give a lecture to our philosophy department. I go, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I have no idea of chiropractic. I'm in the allopathic world, and I don't know, how can I talk there? And she said, everything you've been lecturing about is basic chiropractic. I said, what? And she said, she told me about D.D. Palmer. So I got D.D. Palmer's handbook, 1910. Handbook of chiropractic. I started reading. I said, when you get through the 1800s, early 1900s way of writing, inside it was all beautiful. Inside was a story of quantum physics and all this other stuff. And I started to realize, oh my God, all this stuff in the chiropractic work was really the update of what I was doing in Stanford with quantum physics and stem cells. The mechanisms were somewhat really understood by D.D. Palmer. And it was interesting, because then I took that and started to lecture at the school. And it was funny, because at first people had trouble with my story of philosophy of chiropractic, because I wasn't a chiropractor, so they questioned it. But I was emphasizing that D.D. Palmer was really the brains behind the whole thing, the first guy, 1895. And it was really interesting, because he was an electromagnetic healer. He was involved in what are called the mystery schools back in those days, and which was seeking all this this connection of the invisible realm. So Palmer was, and actually that's where even Einstein was getting a lot of his stuff. It was from people like Helen Blavatsky, a famous person who downloaded a lot of stuff, and people have been trying to interpret her stuff from the mystery school ever since. Her stuff is interestingly very scientifically based on modern science right now. Modern science is actually recognizing what she talked about in 1800s. So once I started to recognize that, then I started also to recognize, yes, what we in the medical profession when I was there were working with, we were dealing with people's symptoms, trying to, alleviate symptoms. If it was pain, take away the pain, or, if something wasn't working right, try to make it working right by fixing it. And we focus on symptoms. What my research started to get into was, the symptoms aren't the problem. The symptoms are the consequence of a problem. So medicine wasn't dealing with the problem. It was dealing with the consequence of a problem, the physical thing that unfolded. And chiropractic said, wait, you can deal with this issue before it unfolds physically. You can deal with it at the energetic state, because the energetic state precedes the physical state. And when I started to recognize that, I said, oh my goodness, the basic things that chiropractors recognize is that allopathic medicine, the field I was in, is sickness care. You're sick, you get taken care of. Chiropractic is wellness care. You stay well, you don't get sick. So the idea is, allopathic is wait for those people to get sick and then try to fix them. And chiropractic is say, you don't ever have to get sick. You can take care of your health, and that will, preclude a disease. And it turns out, well, this is much more accurate understanding than medical science, which still tries to use drugs to interact with the symptoms. And what could be a symptom? Cancer, interestingly enough, is a symptom. People think, oh, cancer is a problem. I say, no, cancer is a result of an environment that is unhealthy, and it's actually destabilizing the community of cells. The cancer cell is a result of the destabilization. The cancer cell didn't cause the problem. It is the result of a problem. So you look at it, you say, look at, for example, allopathics focus on what? Killing all the cancer cells and not recognizing that wasn't the source of the problem. It was the environment and the perceptions and the field, as epigenetics now reveals. Where's the problem? So it's like, wow, I was in the wrong field. I could see it. My God, we're addressing the wrong issues using the wrong physics. And that's why when I started to go into chiropractic and really emphasize the core of chiropractic is quantum physics and its understanding and shaping our biology, I realized that that's where science will go when it lets go of its old Newtonian belief and starts to embrace quantum physics. Allopathic science will become more like chiropractic in that endpoint.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, Bruce, from then, who became your chiropractor? Did you find a chiro in your area, or who do you get adjusted by?
Well, at first, because I was involved with the school, I got adjusted by people at the school, which was like cool. I got, like, okay, I got the good ones. I got the ones who teach, so, and even I've been adjusted by, people like Guy Reekman, who's head of Life East, or Brian Kelly, who was New Zealand and now Life West, even the Parkers. So I got adjusted by some of the best people out there. And then back in Santa Cruz, I found a chiropractor, which mixes more energy as well as physical adjustment, because energy is pretty damn effective at influencing us without the physical, the physical adjustment. You can do an energetic adjustment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Bruce, you were over and based in the New Zealand Chiropractic College for a few years. Is that right?
I still am. I love it. I go there every year. I teach every year from January through May. And wonderful, because being open thinking university type course versus the conventional medical school, which is really, the vision is narrowed by the pharmaceutical companies, says we're only going to talk about this. Chiropractic allows a bigger conversation about the nature of science and planet and health. And I appreciate it because I have a wonderful immunology course, unlike any immunology course in the world, because it brings into the things such as spirit. And it's like, I remember my wife heard a student leaving my class after my first class my first class at New Zealand, and the student walked down and said, "Who would have thought you'd hear about God in an immunology course?" And yet it's kind of exciting because the new sciences explains it all, and the mysteries about health disappear when you bring the energy into the story, which allopaths are prohibited from doing that because of pharmaceutical corporate interests.
Great. And just to finish up, in a minute or two only, and then I just want to finish with where people can find more resources in terms of your books, and what's probably the best place to start with learning more about the work you're doing, Bruce, is that so I still think that a lot of, chiropractic patients or people who are interested in potentially seeing a chiropractor don't truly get that the adjustment really influences the health of the tissue cells. It's not about cracking backs to fix back pain at all. From the background that you have, sort of what's the mechanism, I guess, that adjusting the spine, when you come into the office and you have your spine adjusted, how does that have a influence on the cell biology in a positive aspect? 2 minutes, Bruce, go.
Yeah, Trent, it's very simple, because I've already given one insight. When I quoted Albert Einstein, I quoted the field, the energy, the invisible energy. The field is the sole governing agency of the particle. That's the physical body. And I say, why is it relevant? Because, and I teach this to chiropractors, because we get so caught up in the physical adjustment, failing to recognize that more of the healing comes from the energy and vibration of the healer, who is living in harmony with high vibration. And in quantum physics, it's called entangling, when two energies, and I talked about sometimes energies come together and they add up, good vibes, or sometimes they come together and they cancel out bad vibes. And I go, why is it relevant? Because it's the chiropractor's heart and intention and mind that are coordinating a field of healing. And so when a chiropractor is touching a patient, it's hands-on healing, where entanglement of the energy of the chiropractor entangles with the energy of the patient. And under most circumstances, the energy of the practitioner, the chiropractor, is really high, because chiropractic philosophy and living chiropractic philosophy is so health enhancing that chiropractors and families of chiropractors are usually very unique in how healthy and vibrant they are. So I say, well, a good, healthy chiropractor comes into a room, a patient who is not doing well, has lower vibration and disharmony. That's where the problems come from. And I say, then what happens? I say, well, when the chiropractor is adjusting the patient, part of the adjustment, a major part, is the energy of the chiropractor and the energy of the patient coming together. And that's called interference. And if the chiropractor energy is really strong, the weaker patient energy will try to entrain with it. Entrainment, it's called. So it will come up to the level of the chiropractor. And therefore, when the patient walks out, they've got a battery charge as well as a physical adjustment that went on. But there's a battery charge in their consciousness because of the entanglement. And it's really important, because to recognize that it's an energy type healing. That was recognized in day one by D.D. Palmer. He just said people were not ready in those days to talk about energy healing. And in 1910, he said, compared to 1895 when he founded it, he said by 1910, he said, people are still not ready for this yet, as recognized as energy and spirit. So he gave other names such as innate intelligence and universal intelligence, thinking if you use those words, people will accept them. If you use spirit and God, they probably won't show up. And so it was actually a spiritual healing, but spiritual healing in terms of quantum physics is energy healing. Yeah. And that's a real thing. And in fact, it was the primary way of healing, as I said, for for all the millennia before medical schools existed. Energy healing was the primary form of healing. Pharmaceuticals have taken us away from that, saying, no, pay the money for the chemical and disavow the energy. Don't go there. And the fact is, yeah, because it's much more effective than the drugs. The energy has no side effects. That's a little interesting aspect to it as well. Energy healing is quantum mechanics. That's basically what it is. There's a science. It's not woo-woo. There's a foundation to it.
That's amazing. So everybody out there in the podcast world who's listening in right now, I'm sure you've just got a freaking amazing amount out of that episode. There was about 10 times when I've just been here on the other end listening, that have just been like blown my mind. So Bruce, thanks so much for joining us today. And man, so where would people be best to start with? I mean, you've got 3 books here, and I remember reading The Biology of Belief on our way to New York, actually, to Parker Seminar number of years, probably 3 years ago now. And I haven't picked up the other 2 books yet. But is The Biology of Belief, is that sort of the foundation where you think most people should start, or is there more of an entry-level book? What would be the recommendation there for people?
Well, for people in the healing industry, for sure, The Biology of Belief. And it's not that it's just more focused on cells and mechanisms and energy and all that kind of stuff, giving mechanics.
Yeah.
The Honeymoon Effect is a wonderful book because it does a lighter touch on that, but really gives more emphasis on the nature of the programming, because it's the programming that results in the hardness between relationships, the loss of love and all that. It's all programming. When people fell in love originally, they were operating without a program. That's the equivalent of taking the red pill in the movie The Matrix. Falling in love is taking the red pill because you stop playing the program. I say, what happens when you fell in love? I say, your whole life changed instantly. It became beautiful and happy and filled with pleasure, and it was great. And I go, how'd that happen? I say, because it's the one moment you stopped playing the program and you started just running from wishes and desires, and you manifested wishes and desires. It was great. And then you lose that honeymoon when thinking gets back in, as we talked about. And once the thinking gets back in, you start playing the negative programs in the subconscious, and that subverts the relationship. And so the Honeymoon Effect book is really great for people looking for love, people who are in love and want to stay in love, or for people who are in love and finding that just right now it doesn't seem to be working. Because if you understand why it's not working, you could always understand then how to get back to what was the original honeymoon all about, because it's still there. It's just unfortunately masked by the programming that's coming from the subconscious when the honeymoon disappears. So it's always there. You can get back to it. So honeymoon effect, for those people in love, want to stay in love, it's a great book because it's a science of relationships.
Nice. I'm pretty sure that's nearly every single person listening, I think, will benefit from that by the sounds of it, Bruce. Doc, mate, that's been fantastic. Appreciate it so much. I'm sure you've got a pretty crazy schedule over there, so I really do appreciate you taking the time to share with the Innate Doctor podcast listeners. And if you want to jump onto Bruce Lipton, it's BRUCELIPTON.com. We will also provide the links on the innatedoctor.com website and in the show notes for the podcast. But yeah, check out the books available. But by the sounds of it, The Honeymoon Effect is going to be my next read. So potentially that should be on your to-do list. Is it available in audio yet, Bruce, or do you have to actually read it?
Reading is hard. Oh, okay. It is available in audio, and nice. Sounds True makes it. I think it's available on Fishpond. If you do Amazon, it's available on all that. Or Sounds True is for the audio. You can get it direct from Sounds True. Or I think even my website. So even my website, brucelipton.com, has all these things on it. DVDs and audios, but it's also a lot of free information and a lot of opportunities to connect to videos and interviews and things like that. So you can get a lot of the story just freely downloading it from that website.
Cool. Yeah, brucelipton.com. That sounds like the place to go to get everything at your fingertips. So, Bruce, man, is there anything that you'd like to just finish up? Let the last words of the day.
Well, the last words of the day, if you're listening to Trent and you're listening to a chiropractic story, then this is really, for me, an understanding of how to find health without paying the price of a pharmaceutical issue and a medical issue. It's better to take care of your health and not get sick than to get sick and then try to fix your health. And so my deepest appreciation for chiropractic, because it really allowed me to leave the allopathic community and find something that I think is much more effective in helping us have a wonderful life on this planet.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Bruce Lipton. We'll see you later.
Thank you, Trent. Thank you so much.
There you have it, guys. Dr. Bruce Lipton, absolutely amazing. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. A really, really fun episode. Amazing man. And hopefully we can get him out here to present at one of our seminars next year, which would be friggin' awesome. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have been enjoying this show, I ask you one thing. They are coming to you absolutely free of charge, but I would love if you could please share it on your social media. Share it with your friends, family. If you're a health practitioner, share it with your patients. I think that there's so much value in these people who we're interviewing that they can just help people reach a whole new level of health and happiness in their own lives. And the only way to do that is if people can actually hear it and get the message. So very much appreciate your help in getting that out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you at the next episode. We have the amazing Don Tolman coming to us for the next Innate Doctor podcast. So stay tuned for that, coming to you in the next couple of weeks. And I hope you're enjoying it. Peace.
Thanks for listening. Dr. Trent Headlam is the Innate Doctor. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and subscribe to us on iTunes. And for heaps more life-changing stuff, go to www.theinnatedoctor.com. Join Dr. Trent at the next episode. Have fun getting healthy.